Everyone, welcome to the TRS Spring Preview. Going to have plenty of fun on this vodcast, I suppose, Nico. In the office today, and it's all revamped.
It's been a long time coming. I don't think we've ever done a vodcast.
No, not since like the real old days. I reckon we did one in about 2015 to our friends on Facebook. Remember that? We talked about Winks.
Oh, that's a long time ago.
Winning a George Ryder.
Hopefully no one finds that vision anywhere.
Yeah, that vision is long dead and buried. But it's taken us 10 years to come back to the vodcast. So
we're a bit late to the party, aren't we?
Yeah, I don't think it's the greatest production of all time, but anyway, it's done on the cheap because we're cheap. So let's get stuck straight into it, though. It's all about the content. Got to look at a few of the main races, the top horses, the big stories. But you've come up with a plan for this vodcast.
Well, you just wanted to talk about the Cox Plate and the Melbourne Cup and the Caulfield Cup, and I didn't really want to talk about those races. So I've come in with a bit of a different outlook and on a few horses we can potentially follow throughout the spring.
I don't mind it because everywhere's putting out their spring previews right now, and there's a lot of talk about Via Sistina. There's a lot of talk about Autumn Glow and Tino.
There's only so much you can say about them.
Exactly right. So you've picked some... Well, I'm looking through some of the names you want to touch on, and I don't reckon they'll be mentioned in too many other spring previews. And you're knocking a champion a little bit later on, so we'll get to that. Where you want to start, though, Nico, is the X Factor runner for the spring. The horse you think could have a bit of a breakout Spring Carnival. Now, this horse wouldn't have been listed in my top 50 for this category, but you picked a horse who could be a lightweight flyer in the Cups, or at least a horse who's going to probably find his way into those BC grade sort of staying races.
Yeah, I think it would be hard to beat in like a Bart Cummings, Herbert Power, Geelong Cup. That horse is Gilded Water. We probably haven't really taken a whole lot of notice of him in Victoria, given his 3 runs have been in Sydney. But he won at Kembla Grange as a $3 favourite. His first run here in Australia, he beats Alan Cahans. So
yes, Chairman's handicap winner who started favourite in the Sydney Cup.
Automatically, that jumps off the page at you. Then he goes to the 21st of December, bolts in a benchmark 78 over 2,400 metres. He goes 95.5 on the weight for age scale, which is a pretty big number coming out of a benchmark 78.
That's a genuine Saturday class number, probably pushing listed class.
It's like low grade sort of listed class, especially in the staying events. Now, the big factor with this horse is he's got no handicap rating. It's only an 81 rater. Okay. So he's going to have to probably potentially even win a decent race to sort of bolster his way into some of the bigger races later in the spring.
I think you probably get into those C, B grade races on the limit with an 80 rating.
But he could have like 52 kilos in Bart Cummings. And then...
Well, yeah, the minimum in those sort of races is usually 54. But yeah.
Right. Yeah, he could get in at those sort of real light weights. And then once you adjust his ratings for the weights he's going to get in those races, I think he's going to be right in them. So they haven't missed him in the Melbourne Cup betting. He's only had 7 starts. He bolted in his maiden overseas. This is the King's horse, actually, if you hadn't taken note of that. So
he's with the right camp.
There's a bit of expectation. He's with the Mar team, and he's having his second campaign in Australia. So I'm really banking on the fact he can probably improve this campaign down in the weights in a Bart Cummings, Hurt Power, Geelong Cup. If he can sort of even improve a length or two, I reckon the ratings he could produce down in the weights are easily good enough to win those races. So he's probably a horse I'm like really looking forward to back in the next few months.
I don't mind this shout at all because once I look through his profile, he's got a very, very intriguing profile.
He's got a Melbourne Cup profile, doesn't he? He's only had 7 starts.
Maybe not as a winner, but as a horse who could run top 6. Like you look through the horses Kieran's brought to a Melbourne Cup in the last 8 years or so. He's brought a horse like Persan, Grand Promenade, who threw that Bart Cummings. In more recent time, interpretation through a Bendigo Cup, he was able to run, 6th Ash Run through a Geelong Cup, High Emotion through a Bendigo Cup. So he's Floating Artist is probably the other one. He ran top 4 in a Melbourne Cup, he didn't actually win anything on the way through, but he was able to place in a Coonji, in a Moonee Valley Cup. He was desperately unlucky in that Moonee Valley Cup.
And then ran 4th in the Melbourne Cup, unfortunately for us, all of us on it each way at 100 to 1.
Yeah. Still haunts me, that Melbourne Cup.
Yeah.
We've got the pattern, though, and the template with the Mar stable. They know what they're doing to get these sort of progressive horses into a Melbourne Cup. 51 kilos, the new limit for a Melbourne Cup. So that's been raised this year, and the weights are going to be really different for the Melbourne Cup this year. You're going to have a 59 kilo top weight at nominations.
Right.
And the race this year must have a 57 kilo top weight at acceptances. So last year, of course, we had Vauban at top weight at 55 and a half. So this year is going to look a little bit different in terms of how the weights will look.
A few of the horses we're going to touch on in the X Factor, you've just followed my lead with the potential Cups horse. They're going to be right down in the weights.
I think it's
like if Gilded Water gets in, he's getting 51 kilos, isn't he?
Oh yeah, he'd get him he'd be on 51 right now. Of course, he hasn't won anything. So, and if he's to say win a Bart Cummings, I can't see
might cop a half,
maybe. Yeah, I think he's a nice sort of horse to keep following through the.
He's a great horse to back at like hundreds, like and have a real stab. Yeah. He's only 30s, but I reckon in those lead-up races, he just could be an absolute moral in one of them. We go chips in, hopefully.
Oh, he impressed me with what he was able to do last preparation, so I can see the love. Similar sort of vein of horse. So Gilded Water won a few benchmark races in the summer in Sydney. Down in Melbourne, the horse who won a few benchmark races in the autumn was Revelare, and he's my X factor. I just feel this is a horse who's got a real sense of timing to do something this spring and just elevate again. Some of his performances last preparation, so, that win at Flemington at 2,000 metres, he had no right to win the race. Some of his performances at Sandown on the hillside where he's running massive splits late. And I just feel like once he gets to 2,500 and then potentially even further, you're going to really see the best of Revelare. Rob Hickmott, we know, is a great trainer of stayers. He's a Melbourne Cup winning trainer with Green Moon.
And he showed last campaign, he did it off some really fast tempos and ripped home in the quickest closing splits of the day a few times and did off slow speeds. It was just a horse that is much better than the opposition he was racing against.
Yeah, and he's another one who's got some good performances in terms of ratings. Like his ratings profile to me is of a horse who there's a lot of depth and substance to. So, in terms of, targets for him, I'd say they're pretty similar to a horse like Gilded Water. He's probably looking to try and book his ticket through a race like the Bart Cummings. So, you mentioned Gilded Water's, pushing 95 at weight for age. Well, last start, Revelare is 94.4. Prior to that, he goes 95. So, he's a horse that, from Form King's perspective, which is what we do a lot of our data from, and big shout out to Dave and his team. If you wanted to find access to a database, they're doing a great job. In terms of his numbers, he profiles, I'd say, even a little bit better to Gilded Water because he's done it on more occasions. And the key to me is he's just going to have a perfect, probably, preparation. He's probably going to kick off at 1,600 metres and then just flow right through to, races like the Heatherly, the Naturalism. I would think he's probably running in a Bart Cummings on that first week in October, Moonee Valley Cup.
Well, you look at those races. The Bart Cummings just fine wins it, goes 98 last year.
Yeah, so these horses.
The Akita Sushi goes 98.7, winning the Moonee Valley Cup. So they got to find 2.5 lengths, 3 lengths.
Not even really. You're talking sort of 1.5, 2 lengths.
Yeah,
which I think is very possible.
Yeah, they seem I think of our Melbourne Cup chances, you've got Vauban at the top of the weight, at the top of the betting at the moment, Sedalius. I don't really see any real value in looking to back one of those horses. I think these are the sort of horses that they might not be able to win the Cup, but you might be able to get set for a good result early on, and then, you've got a live ticket at 50s or something.
Yeah, well, they're sort of horses too that the first, second up runs are probably not going to be effective. You're hoping that the corporates wind them out a bit with, potentially other horses coming on the scene a bit earlier, like whoever wins the Archer, for example, whatever wins, maybe this big staying race in Sydney, whatever comes from international. They're the horses that maybe start to gravitate a bit more in that marketplace. And a horse like Revelare, horse like Gilded Water, who are just getting fit, maybe they get turned out a few prices, a few rolls, and you're looking at maybe taking 50 to 1. That'd be a price I'd be happy enough to take with either horse for a Melbourne Cup, especially on an each way basis.
You got anything else?
Yeah, the other X Factor horse for me is Middle Earth, because I just love what he did in the Australian Cup Prelude. Then they went down the route of running an Australian Cup and a Queen Elizabeth, and he was just run off his feet in 2 really fast run races, and he just couldn't get into it. I would suggest he's one of the best local chances for the Cups. Like, he's going to get in down in the weights perspective. He's probably going to get in around 53 kilos. He hasn't won heaps. So, that's where
Do you think he's maybe like a better Caulfield Cup chance, like 2,400?
Yeah, possibly, but I don't think 3,200 metres at Flemington wouldn't be within his wheelhouse. Like, I think
It was like he got a bit, like, I know they're hard races to do a whole lot in if you're not seasoned to them, like the Australian Cup, which is a brutal speed, then the Queen Elizabeth. But it was almost like he got a bit outsped in them relative to his first up run. Like he just looked like a complete stale, those other 2 runs.
Yeah, I think the first up run...
He's probably flattered by the slow tempo.
Slow tempo flattered him, and then, he just didn't look anywhere near as good in the Australian Cup or the Queen Elizabeth. But he wasn't disgraced in either. Like, that's the other bit. Like, he's beaten 7 lengths in the Australian Cup, which was run at a really fast speed with Pride of Jenny. Then he goes to the Queen Elizabeth. He sits out the back, and he's beaten under 7 by VS Estina Dubai Honour. He beat home Vauban on that day. So,
yeah, I know punters might be sitting at home thinking, like, these really Melbourne Cup chances. We have to remember the race last year. Warp Speed got gapped in a Caulfield Cup and ran second. Yeah. Knowledge Choice, he was unlucky in a Bendigo Cup, but he hadn't done much in any other runs in the spring.
Yep.
And Zardozi was the other real key chance, and Nikita Sushi. Nikita Sushi done nothing leading into the spring. His first good run was in the Herbert Power.
Yeah.
So they can come from a bit of obscurity.
Yeah, I think the modern Melbourne Cup, which I'm talking last 4 years, is a completely different beast to the 2010s sort of era where you had the, protectionists, the rekindlings, the cross counters. They were just stronger cups across the board. Now I think there's been a real push away also from taking a weight for age horse to the Cup. I don't think we're ever going to see the Hartnells, the Criterions. Faulkner, even, for example, those sort of horses that ran in Melbourne Cups that had multiple Group 1s on their CV. I think that's gone because they've now got a Champion Stakes on the final day. There's more talk than ever of Australian horses going to Hong Kong for the big day.
You got all the, Rosehill Gold Cup, all those Hill Stakes that are worth crazy amounts of money for what they are.
Exactly. So I think you're going to, like, if I'm looking at a Melbourne Cup field, the top weight's likely to be, if an international comes here, like Al Riffa, he's probably going to be like one of the horses at the top of the weight for Joseph O'Brien. Then you've got like Knight's Choice, Vauban. There's no Duke de Sessa, he's out for the spring. Arapaho is probably going to be pretty high up in the weights, being a dual Group 1 winner. They're going to be penalised pretty harshly the way that this Melbourne Cup's going to have to work out. Say an Al Riffa doesn't come, and come the time of acceptances, a horse like Vauban, who hasn't won the Cup in the last 2 years, carrying 55.5, might be asked to carry 57. Whereas these other horses, like who are on the fringes of the weights, like right down the bottom, they're not going to be impacted as much if the weights have to go up.
Yeah, it's a fair point, and probably is a good year to look away from a bit of the obvious then.
Middle Earth also, you got to understand, like when he was in Europe, he's a winner over 2,800 metres. So I think, there's a huge chance that he's going to thrive once he gets right out and trip.
All right. So that's our Cups chat, I think.
Yeah. We could go in a little bit more depth with that in a few weeks, but there's not a lot that's going to happen in the next couple of weeks regarding the Cups, unless it's announcements around the internationals that are coming. But I'm still skeptical.
Does it even matter if they're coming? Like, they got to get into the race, like we saw last year.
Well, that's exactly right.
They're like irrelevant until acceptances come out, the internationals.
Yeah, like you can get excited. Excited's maybe not the right word, but you can get. No, it probably is. Like you can get a little bit of anticipation around Joseph bringing horses, around the Japanese potentially coming with horses. But they've got to get here, and then they've still got to pass the test here. Like we saw with last year, Jan Bruegel is the greatest example of all time as to how backing these internationals...
fraught with danger.
Absolutely fraught with danger. Like that whole situation is still yet to really be cleared up. Racing Victoria and their veterinary team, well, their veterinary team really, and the independent vets who make those decisions on the rules that RV brought in. Ruled that he wasn't sound enough to compete in the Melbourne Cup. Yet he's gone and raced in Europe this season and been at the top of his game. So
we don't need to open that can of worms.
No, but I'm saying in terms of it's hard for us to like just be chips in on a European horse who's like, in quarantine or going to be coming here that realistically, like once they get to Werribee, it's just things can happen. They can happen quick.
Yep.
I think we've done enough on the cups. All right. This next bit I thought was interesting by you. Forgotten horses. So some horses from the last 12 months that you think of maybe people have dropped off, whether that's because of injuries, we haven't seen them, maybe form. So you want to kick us away with your first forgotten horse?
I think the forgotten horse from a Melbourne sprints point of view, Sydney sprints for a few of these horses are a bit irrelevant. They're just...
Well, they've got to get through one horse, which is going to be incredibly hard.
And then the other one is Private Harry. He's going to be hard to beat in the lead-ups anyway. So,
well, just before we get to this forgotten horse, the Everest we're just sort of talking about, which is now the race that everyone talks about in the sprint scene. It's very interesting. The Everest. There's no Group 1 lead-up in Sydney for the Everest. They've got these huge money races in the Concord, the Shorts, the Premier, and then they've got the Russell Balding, which is now going to be run at Randwick 2 weeks later, with the move with the Golden Eagle going from Rosehill to Randwick. Interesting that. But you've got Carling Rising, who's no doubt the best sprinter on the planet, but he's only done it in one country. He's got to come here to a different set of circumstances and do it in Australia. But there's no doubt he deserves to be favourite for the Everest. You've got Private Harry, who's been mighty impressive. Do you suggest he's the best of the Australian sprinters?
Private Harry.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Ahead of Jimmy.
Probably him. And I think Jimmy Star's the most talented. He just needs so much in his favour to win. I would say he's probably the best horse, but Private Harry can put himself there and he's probably got a better opportunity to win more races. So, Jimmy Star's the most talented. I've no doubt about that.
And then you've got Briasa, Jolly Star, Sunshine in Paris. So a group of them behind him.
Which they're not the strongest crop to start with. I think everyone's probably outlined that. And that makes our Melbourne sprints even weaker.
Well, yeah, you look at like the markets for races like a Manikato, the Champion Sprint.
The Moya.
The Moya.
You're going to have the McEwen, the Caulfield Sprint.
Yeah.
There is a lot of sprints over
the Gilgai.
The sprint. They're nearly every week.
Yeah, exactly. And
at that Group 2 sort of level.
Yeah, and then, the Manikato punching up to the Group 1 level, AFL Grand Final Eve. There's opportunities for horses away from running in Everest, and we've seen that. And you're highlighting a horse that you think is just forgotten in that space.
I think he's completely forgotten, given the last time we saw him win a race was in the Meteorite, and he looked like a Group 1 sprinter any day of the week off that performance.
Yeah, he was awesome that day.
He went past Barracuda like he was stuck to the fence.
Barracuda did get injured in that race.
It was Nadal. Barracuda's $6 to win the Manikato, and Nadal's $34.
Do you know where he's at? Is he...
No idea. No idea where he's at.
Okay.
But I think if he then went to the Supernova, which like the punters would be like, what are these races? They were the lead up sort of Southside racing slot races.
They were a big success last year.
And he seemed to go amiss in the Supernova. We didn't see him in the autumn. But I'm just like taken back to that run which he had in the Supernova, and he really came of age a bit in the spring. It was unlucky. It's probably like the tragedy beaten of Cup Week in that sprint race on one of the final days, and he bolts in the Supernova. Just think, with potentially not the strongest crop of sprinters anyway, a lot of them going to Sydney to start with, I doubt he's going to be a horse they're going to be looking to get into an Everest.
No.
They just seem like races, those Group 2, the Manikato, I'm going to say, is a Group 2 of nature at the moment. It doesn't really seem like it's going to be a legitimate Group 1.
Yeah, so like horses you could think off the top of your head heading that way. Barracuda.
Well, Barracuda's second favourite at $6.
War Machine.
War Machine's favourite. Giga Kick $7.
Well, he's interesting. Like, you wouldn't pick him for an Everest at the moment.
Over past 9. So it's, it's probably ahead of the B graders with the older boys and a few untapped sort of horses. And Nadal has to be in that category of what we saw last spring. So I think he's a huge chance to be just completely forgotten about, especially in a few of these early races. So I'll be intrigued to see how well he comes back in some jump outs because he runs up to that meteorite rating. He is well in play in some of these lower level sprints.
Don't mind that. My forgotten horse is the horse you just talked about, Barracuda. I still think he's going to the Spring with this tempered expectation because he's had what was the injury again?
Suspensory.
It's suspensory, yeah. I was going to say suspension, but I knew that wasn't the right thing to say. Suspensory injury. They've now had a real process after he was scratched from the Bletchingley to talk to the RV vets. I think there's going to be some big movement because of that regarding how horses are treated after long injury and forced layoffs. I don't think they'll be vetted on race day as part of the...
Yeah, so that's usually the protocol is you have your jump outs and trials and you rock up to race day with a horse that's been off the scene for 12 months or I think it's even up to 8 months, maybe.
What? Yeah, I don't even know.
I don't even know if it's 12 months.
I think it's just if you've had a really serious injury.
The vets on the race day sort of assess you and that's when you get assessed if you're A-OK to go, which he wasn't in the Bletchingley according to the vets. So he's late scratching on that day.
Yeah, about 40 minutes before the race.
Which is some concern, making him a sort of, that runner.
They've...
Well, now the problem is he's got a target on his back from the vet's point of view.
Yeah, but the vets have now gone down and had a look at him multiple times. They're building a profile with the Corstens Larkin team. And look, I'll just back them in to get this horse right. He didn't race till he was 4. He's a horse who's had his problems throughout the journey and maybe he'll never reach his absolute full potential. But in terms of if they can get him back to the level he was at the Spring, he's capable of winning a Moir. He's capable of winning a Manikato. Moonee Valley could be...
McEwen would have to be right on his radar.
Yeah, those races are just right up his alley for mine.
Yeah, I don't mind that, given the Nadal form line. I just think Nadal's crazy odds in those races.
Yeah, I mean, Barracuda's, $6 and Nadal's 34. That's true. Nadal, I think he's forgotten because he hasn't been seen.
Yeah.
You got one more?
Yeah, Kingswood. Group 1 Gabs horse. Now...
He's nominated for the Caulfield Cup.
And the Cox Plate.
Gut feel he wouldn't be good enough for a Cox Plate.
Yeah. But,
well, I mean to be competitive. I'm not saying he's going to beat Via Sistina.
Well, I just go back to... He sort of come onto the scene last spring when he won the Coonji, had that big win at Sandown when he was...
The big plunge.
50s in. And he started 280 in a Coonji and was an effortless victory. And then 5 diamonds, not everything went his way. He did start $5 in that race against Antino.
Yeah.
So you got to place a bit of respect on that SP. We haven't really seen him. We saw him in the Zipping Classic, but that was a wet track, weird race. Forgive that. If he can sort of come back this spring, I don't know what the targets will be. I'd imagine they're trying to get him into a cup, probably a Caulfield Cup. I think he'd be a live chance to win a naturalism or...
Well, I kind of think isn't Underwood a really good race for him?
Yeah, I saw him in the Underwood betting and I thought,
I know you
might have to have a second look at him here. The Underwood seems like the race that is up for grabs. It's at a weird time.
Well, it's just in the weirdest spot.
You can't run in the... If you go Memsey, Mackay Diva, you're not running in the Underwood because the week after the Mackay Diva.
Yeah, and then you've got on the week after the Fan Stakes at 1,600, you've got 2 weeks after the Turnbull is... after the Underwood is the Turnbull.
And then the Might and Power.
And you got the Might and Power the week after that. So
plus anything in Sydney.
And the Hill Stakes sort of fits in there with Sydney. The Epsom fits in there with Sydney. So just a lot of options. And that the Underwood, where it's been programmed the last 2 years back at Caulfield, has been the race. Last year, Buckaroo smashed his opposition and made the race look a bit better than what it was. But Pericles jumped favourite in the Underwood last year. Off a win in the So You Think. I sort of think that would be the perfect kickoff race for him, that race at the Valley. The So You Think... potentially then having a look at you give him a look around the Valley. If he goes really well, you'd have to go to the Underwood.
Yeah, Gav does a great job at placing his horses, and I just think he is a little bit forgotten. If he's winning the Coonji, this horse just seems like there's still a lot of upside to come.
He'd probably be a horse who'd sit around 52, I'd think, in a Caulfield Cup, 52 and a half.
They'd be mad not to try and get him in.
Do you think he'd stay?
I think he would. He's already tested him in a Zipping Classic, so that's obviously
Well, he went he went pretty average.
the gut feel that he's going to be a stayer.
What
They
did-
had him accept him in a champion stakes. Like they've obviously got a massive opinion of the horse. Like he's only $15 in the Underwood, and I think the Underwood is a race where the corporates are playing their cards a bit close to their chest because they're probably seeing what we are, that nothing really of massive quality is going to go there.
Yeah, well, I'd think the number one Melbourne horse at the moment who could potentially head that way is Tommy Kitten on the 7-day backup.
But he's not even in the markets,
Really?
which is a tragedy. Absolute tragedy.
I'd think he'd be the number one Melbourne horse to potentially head that way, and I'd think the other one's Treasure the Moment.
Anyway, Kingswood is a bit forgotten. Just take your mind back to that Coonji win.
My other forgotten horse is last year's Underwood winner, Buckaroo. He's not talked about at all this Spring Carnival because of the flop that he had in the autumn/winter where he just didn't really get going. He was monstrous in the Caulfield Cup. He was still a huge run in the Melbourne Cup. I'm convinced he's better in Melbourne. Chris Wallace said he's gonna come to Melbourne quickly.
Well, I would say last spring, he didn't win those races, but you'd probably have him the second best horse for the spring, wouldn't you? Like he's
he was enormous.
He's pushed Verstappen within the head in the Turnbull. He bolted in an Underwood. It's probably a moral beat in a Caulfield Cup, and maybe not a moral beat in the Melbourne Cup, but gee, he was pretty unlucky.
Yeah, he had a tough trip in the Melbourne Cup.
Well, the query is what he's done since. The run and the rider was superb.
Yeah, I think like he's had 2 runs since, hasn't he? 3 runs since.
The rider, the Queen Elizabeth,
And the Hollandale. Hollandale was on that god-awful track at the Gold Coast.
And the Queen Elizabeth was average.
The Queen Elizabeth was average, but it was run at a fast pace and
He had no platform.
no conditioning for it. He was coming off 1 run.
Slow run rider.
Yeah. I think he's a horse that could come back, Underwood, might and power. Whether they want to go Caulfield Cup again would probably be dependent on weights, I'd think. I think if he got 57, you'd take the task up for a Caulfield Cup again. Wouldn't you?
Yeah, you'd have to.
So
I don't think... I think they'll be looking for a rider change this year.
No Magic Man?
57, I think J-Mac might be in the play for the Caulfield Cup.
Yeah, wow.
The Everest is on Guineas Day this year, isn't it?
No, it's still on Caulfield Cup.
Oh, okay.
So I'd say, well, what would J-Mac pin himself to for an Everest?
Jolly Star.
Maybe Lady Shenandoah or Autumn Glow if they go that way.
Mm.
He could be twisted. He hasn't won a Caulfield.
If there's any confirmation from Waller where those two, now mares are going, like what the grand finals are, gee, that will change the futures markets in a few races. The Epsom would be the greatest futures betting race ever if Autumn Glow is not going.
Well, some would say it's the best with her going because you're still getting, you're taking $4 about one of the best up and coming stars who's going to get in with probably 51 kgs, 52 at max.
Yeah, I had a good look at the Epsom. Are we going to touch on a few of those horses?
Well, you're right rattling through it, so you might as well.
Well, I thought Point and Shoot was a big price in the Epsom. Like, he's a horse that could come out and win a tramway and a Bill Ritchie. He did start favourite in the Australian Guineas and had no luck.
He's a good horse.
He's 50 to 1. Like,
good stable.
I thought the other horse that seems really well set up for the Epsom, we were keen on him in a Doncaster, but he didn't get in, was Swift Falcon. It's just, I think the runs in the 2,000 metre races, a few of them he was poorly ridden. I think everyone could agree with that and not giving his best chance to win. But I think from a spring point of view, they've probably seasoned him more than anything else.
Yeah, and you'd think he'd be aimed at 1,600 metre races.
Yeah, he'd probably be their Epsom Golden Eagle horse, I would have thought. I reckon he's a horse that could go to that next level this spring.
Yeah, well, what's the difference between him and Evaporate? Consistency? Like Evaporate just wins more races?
Better tactics, maybe?
Yeah, probably just tactics, yeah. But I don't know. Like Swift Falcon, to me, I think he's just a one-dimensional horse in terms of he needs to get back and finish off.
That can win you a lot of big, high-pressure races, though.
Yeah, handicaps, you can certainly, you can be a flyer in those sort of races off the limit running like that. No, I couldn't disagree with either of them. Swift Falcon's just not a horse. When everyone was spruiking him for the Frank Packer plate when he was whatever price he was, I was really happy to sink the boots in. But if you're taking 20s about him in a 1,600 metre handicap,
Yeah, I think he could be a good handicapper.
Talk about forgotten horses. He hadn't been mentioned at all. Is linebacker.
No, he hasn't really.
Just thinking,
should have won the Donny.
Should have. He was stiff in that Doncaster.
Yeah, like if Ladyshin and Doe and Autumn Glow aren't heading the way of the Epsom, you'd think Aliana's no chance. They head the market. I would have thought off the early sort of moves, though, Autumn Glow may be a chance just to be there. But anyway, I think that's a intriguing race.
Could potentially talk about that a bit in a few weeks. Yeah, I didn't have a heap of horses in that handicap bracket that I was really pinning myself to. Except for one in Victoria. So in New South Wales for an Epsom, I sort of think if Autumn Glow heads that way, she's probably the horse to beat. And then, yeah, like Swift Falcon point and shoot, I can understand. 4-year-olds have a good record in the race. They'll get right down in the weights. But to me, the horse that I want to be on to win a Group 1 this spring is Sepples with Cliff Brown. Like, he did a lot in his first preparation, and that's what you've got to remember. He won a CS Hayes. He was very good, albeit in a weak Australian Guineas. I can understand people potting the form. And we're sort of talking up these 4-year-olds, and there's a bit of jury out whether any of that 3-year-old form is really good. But I think you've got to temper it with the handicap races. A lot of the top weight for age horses just don't run in these races anymore because they're just the trainers are not keen to run them with 59, 60 kilos. They're just not. So you end up with horses at the top of the weights.
It used to be like you would get to Cox Plate Day, and if you're a weight for age horse, you didn't really have another chance. Like that was sort of the end of your spring.
Yeah, 100%.
10 years ago. You could go to the McKinnon, the Emirates was there. Now you got Champions Day. Like, there's no point to even running any handicap. You just sort of reset and get to that point once you've run in a King Charles or a Cox Plate or...
Well, yeah, like, and if you're a 5-year-old, you got the 5 Diamonds. If you're a 4-year-old, you got the Golden Eagle. If you're a 1,200 to 1,600 metre horse, you've now got a Group 1 CF4 3 weeks after the Cox.
Yeah.
So
the Rupert Clark and the Toorak could be weaker than ever.
Well...
They might not be as weak as ever because there's a few progressive horses getting there, like Sepol, King Zephyr. Is It Me was probably one that you'd put in that bracket. After Saturday, it might be a bit jury out, but there's a few of them that sort of are going to get into those races, seemingly a bit deadly off their setups or the weights.
Yeah,
but you're not going to have any real quality at the top of the weights.
No, you're probably looking at a horse like, as a group, sort of those off-Broadway Group 1 winners. So like a horse that probably profiles to be at the top of the weights in those sort of races is Hit a Shock.
Mm.
Yeah. Who last year was fighting out a benchmark 100 with Another Will. And Tino won the Toorak last year. It's not like these races are very easy to win. Komochi won the Rupert Clark, beating Another Will. They're not I'm not saying they're bad races, but they're changed in their terms of their nature. Like, they're not races for your well-established horses.
Right, so you think Sepol?
Well, he gets 2 cracks, really. And now that he's going to Lawrence on Saturday.
How good was his jump out?
Enormous.
Yeah, we sort of did a little bit of a look ahead on .com yesterday when I was on, and we watched his jump out. We had a bit of a look at the yard vision, and I sort of said it seems like he could become go from a boy to a man this campaign. And watching his jump out, that may be the case.
Well, you brought up in that he went to 98 at weight for age last preparation, was it?
Looking through here, I did have it rated. Yeah, 99.6 winning the CSA. So it was pretty big.
That's a big rating. So,
Komochi went 100.8 winning the Rupert Clark.
It's not even a length better.
Yeah.
And the thing with him is he's only a Group 3 winner. So if he gets to the Rupert Clark and he hasn't won the Lawrence, and I'd say, if you're running in the Lawrence, you're probably looking at 2 weeks to the Memsie. Say he doesn't win either of those races, he's still capable of getting into the Rupert Clark on 52.
No, I'm with you. I had him on my list too.
Toorak handicap, I think he'll get the mile. He's a son of Calix, so he's not...
Tell you what, he's a stallion. Every Calix I've seen I've liked. There's one in Tassie that's a freak, like a Calix.
Oh, yeah.
Like, dead set. They should be bringing it to Melbourne. When's it coming to Melbourne? I'll be backing it to Naturalism. It's probably the best horse in Tasmania. And there's a few others that I've just really been taken back by. He's one of them.
Yeah, well, his breeding suggests 1600 will be fine. But, he hit 1600 metres at the end of his first preparation, where he'd already had 5 career starts. Or he'd already had 4 career starts, and he probably peaked for the prep. And then he got a long way back in the mile in a race that was run at a fairly good tempo. And he was probably one of the runs of the race, really, in the Australian Guineas.
I think you probably, if he's going to be a Group 1 winner, he's probably got to say the CS Hayes is real.
Yeah, which it is. It is real.
You think?
It's not Fugazi, though.
There was a few horses there that weren't fit enough back in the field, didn't have their chance to win. I sort of lean on your side that it probably is real.
Oh, like, there was things that went his way. There was definitely circumstances that helped play a part in his victory that day. But in terms of what this horse is capable of achieving, I don't see the CS Hayes as his limit. No, and even if that is his limit and he's just a 100 weight for age horse, rating-wise, he's going to be very competitive in Group 1 handicaps down on the minimum.
Yeah. Yeah, if he's better than that, he's a real live chance. Like, I'd probably have him.
I'd have him favourite for the Rupert.
I would be similar if you just believe that CS Hayes is near as good as he can go, and if you can prove a length and a half, then you'd probably have to have him favourite.
Him and Evaporate probably deserve to be top 2 in that market.
Yeah, and they're going to battle off on Saturday.
So, yeah, and Lawrence probably be first, second favourite.
All right, are we nearly done?
We're getting there. Your horse to win a Group 1 for the spring, you sort of teased him before. He also jumped out at Mornington the other day.
Yeah, went like a beast. Just absolute beast work from Tommy K, wasn't it? Tom Kitten. I loved the jump out. Like, it just looked like Ben Mallam had so much horse. His work through the line was outstanding when he found a bit of clear air. And Mornington is an uphill run in that home straight. Like, if you're not fit or sort of there's a few queries, it will find you out. And it definitely didn't. So, look, now with Team Friedman, I think he's a live chance to win a Memsey. Like, he's 2 runs in Melbourne this last campaign. He's desperately unlucky in a CF4.
Yeah.
Wins the All-Star Mile. Then they took him up to,
Well, the Futurity was the race. He was desperately unlucky.
Same race, different time of year. Comes off a career peak rating in the Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah.
He's always just been this big beast that, it just seemed like he didn't know how to fully use his body right. It was like watching Sam Darcy a year ago. He just now he sort of worked out what his best attributes are. Tommy Kitten might be the same. They gelded him, and he just could go to maybe another level this campaign.
Well, he's been around a long time, but he's going into this Spring Carnival as only a 5-year-old.
But you look at his last spring, like, he was maybe the run of the race in the King Charles from an impossible position. He was a bit unlucky in the Golden Eagle when he got pushed out of the way late in the interference. And then we see what he does in the autumn down here in Melbourne. Like, I'm saying he's a live chance to win the Memsey. I think he's a bit sharper than your Antinos, and he can stretch to 2,000 metres, but he might actually be a mile.
Yeah, I find the Memsey betting really interesting. So Antino is like $3.50 favourite, Mr. Brightside's $4.50, and Tom Kitten's like $9, isn't he?
I think he's tightened up now.
Okay. I'll have a look. There's been a bit of Tom K love the last week or so, especially around the big mainstream.com RSN, getting Sam Friedman on board on a few shows and stuff.
$6.
Still, he's the 4th pick behind Antino, Mr. Brightside, and Another Will. He beat Mr. Brightside and Another Will in the All-Star Mile. Antino, last preparation at 1,400, he didn't get warm in the All-Age. He didn't really get warm in the Memsey last year. I don't know. Antino, to me, is a very...
Antino, he still has this horrible habit of missing the start.
Yeah.
And it seems like at those longer distance ranges, it's less of an issue.
It's not a problem.
It's easier to catch up in the early stages. It's hard to catch up over 1,400 when you're going to have a fast speed.
Personally, going into a Memsey, I'd be much, much keener to be with Tom than Antino.
Well, and I think back to win a Group 1, he's already won a Group 1. Winning the Spring Champion, the All-Star Mile is pretty much a Group 1. But you look at the options he has this spring, he's probably going to go Memsey, Makybe Diva. They could back him up into an Underwood. They could... I doubt they go to a Turnbull and take on Via Sistina.
Yeah, that doesn't seem his race.
Like, I think perfect campaign would be Memsey, Mackay Diva, back up into the Underwood.
2 weeks Martin Power.
Cox Plate.
And then maybe a Champions Mile.
Like, he's going to be busy, but that's why he's probably a fair chance to win one.
Yeah, I'd think he's a great chance to win one.
When you see him, like, the horse just looks like he looks like he could pull a card. Like, he just looks like he'll cop the work.
I think he's a very good horse to be placed with Anthony and Sam Fredman too, because they don't have a banner number 1 star, and he's the horse that they're like. Let's be realistic. He's the horse they're caring the most about every single morning when they rock up.
I think it's a great trainer assignment.
And like, look at the job they did with without a fight. Look at the job they've done with the Group 1 horses they've had in their care in the last 5 years. He's like got the chance to be the first real heavyweight weight for age horse they've had during that period.
I think he is the horse that, of the, the ones we're talking about, Treasure the Moments, a few of the others that can maybe go and, I don't think anything's going to beat Via Sistina or Cox Plate, but there may be chances to beat her in the lead-ups. I wouldn't be surprised if it's him that sort of, takes that opportunity.
Well, you look at a Mackay Diva and you've this is just unbelievable. The race that potentially sets up. You could have Via.
Like the Cox Plate prelude, isn't it?
You could have Via, Another Will, Light Infantryman, Mr. Brightside, Antino, and Tommy K. Throw in Treasure, throw in Aliana, who could be down for it. That's like one of the hottest weight for age races I can remember in ages. Tommy, in that scenario, goes into the race as like the 4th, 5th pick in everyone's head, but he's a live chance at just knocking them off, because 1,600 metres is his wheelhouse, whereas a few of those horses are 2,000 metre horses.
A slowly run All-Star Mile. He had the right run, like built his momentum, but yeah, he's sort of like, and then you see him in a fast run King Charles last spring. Like, he just, any race shape sort of suits him. If they sit up, he's got a big turn of foot, and if they go fast, he's got the stamina to run them down.
We're going to touch now on like our spring slider, the horses that we think, I don't know if we're necessarily saying they regress, but they don't have as big as carnivals as what they've had in the past.
We're going big here. We're going
huge. I want to, just before we get to that though, there was a horse who definitely slid in his reputation in the autumn. He was billed to be the 2nd best horse in Australia, and I think he came out of it maybe the 20th best. That's Cheowolf. Where's he sit for you? Is there a prospect where he can get back on track this spring campaign?
Yeah, definitely.
What do you see as his ideal race? The King Charles again?
Yeah, I think it'd have to be. I think the 2,000 metre experiment, or he runs 2,000.
He runs 2,000. He ran pretty well in the Queen Elizabeth.
I think he's probably a bit more dynamic at 1,600.
I personally...
You were a bit critical of how they rode him.
Well, I just thought they didn't give him... So I think too many of the trainers' tact or connections of horses in weight for age races have got used to Pride of Jenny being there, right? Who sets this ridiculous tempo that brings a lot of horses. If she's off her best, which she was a couple of times, well, maybe not off her best, but when she didn't get conditions to absolutely suit her, you've got this chance to dive at her late. And that suited like Cheowolf, who's probably a 2,000 metre horse running at 1,600. High pressure miler. Really suited him. Then they came to the autumn. He found a few slowly run weight for age races. And he's out the back. And he probably doesn't need to be. He's a horse that has shown some tactical versatility. And I just think they gave up too much of an advantage. And then for me, like if they're going to turn him back into a Group 1 monster, like he won the Epsom and the King Charles in the way last year that you would think he's a bona fide top 5 horse in the country. And yet I think he's coming into the Spring Carnival with no one thinking he's in that bracket now after the autumn.
My thing with him is he going to
transform his racing pattern though? Like, yeah, he still might get the right scenario on a big day if there's a lot of tempo, and he still might be able to finish over the top. But to me, if you want to make him more consistent at that top level, you've got to change some things. And this is probably really harsh. I'd also probably change the rider. I don't know if Chad got a lot out of him in the
Right, maybe more aggressive rider.
autumn.
Like if Nash goes aboard.
Again, like I'll just say a rider of bigger stature.
Right. I think his advantage would be, we just touched on how hot the Maccabi Diva might be. Sydney could be a bit light on for weight for age horses.
Well, which gets me to my big slider. I think, yes, it could be. But if I'm another Will, like connections of another Will, if I'm connections of Gringotts, if I'm connections of Lady Shenandoah, if I'm connections of a linebacker,
They're the ones, the now 4-year-olds. Like Lady
the now
Shenandoah,
4-year-olds,
linebacker, Autumn Glow.
also the new brigade of weight for age horses, which is another Will, Gringotts, light infantry. No, probably not light infantry man because he's a 2,000 metre horse, but Chaya Wolf.
Like the George Ryder sort of field.
Yeah. You're chips in on a King Charles, aren't you?
Yeah, you're not bothering looking at anything in Melbourne.
You're not beating Via Sustina in a Cox Plate. So,
where are they going to go? Winks, 7, King Charles?
well, a few of those horses could still stay in Melbourne for the early part of the spring and then just go up for a King Charles. But the horse who's currently favourite for the King Charles is Fangirl, who's coming into this spring with, I want to say, like, she's hit her best. Now, her best is very, very good. We know that. And she was, probably unlucky to be beaten in the George Ryder.
So what's this, the spring slider?
Well, I just think she's not going to get any better, right? Is she going to this Spring Carnival? I wouldn't think so.
Well, you look at her ratings profile from last campaign. She goes 102 in the Apollo, 101.9 in the Very Elegant, 102.3 in the Ryder, and 102.3 in the Queen of the Turf. So Form King and their team are saying that she's pretty much just raced exactly to her mark every run last campaign.
Yeah, and I would think to win a King Charles, you're going to need to go a little bit better than that.
Yeah, like Chayworth has a bigger number in him than that with the right scenario.
I think linebacker does too, as a 4-year-old. I think Lady Shenandoah does. I think, another Will does. Gringotts, not really sure, but he's very consistent. Like, he puts himself in the best spots.
He's in the right positioning to do it, isn't it?
And I just think that's her Group 1 race, really, Fangirl. They're chips in on the King Charles. Is she going to beat Lady Shenandoah in a Winx at 1,400? I don't know.
Yeah, I like
Via's going to that race.
You're probably looking for the new fresh blood to beat her, aren't you? And that may just be a case if she's been around forever, what it feels like, and you're looking for something a bit fresher.
And maybe it's an easy target as a slider. And she's been a great horse for a long period of time. But I just think in nearly every Group 1 race where she's at the top of the market, so like Champions Mile, King Charles, are probably the two main races, then the Winx, I can think of three or four horses at the top of my head that I'd like to see in the race that could beat her. I just think she could go the whole spring prep without a win.
All right. I like it.
So, even though she is a very good mare. We're sinking the boots into the veterans.
Mine's similar. I love him, and he's always been a real fan favourite. But, yeah, I'm putting Mr. Brightside in there. Nothing against him.
Oh, no.
But I just think...
19 career wins, Nico. He's a champ.
Yeah, and I've been on board for a few. I've been aboard the train, but...
17 million in prize money.
There's been nothing wrong with what he's done today. That's not the question. It's about this spring. We just touched on how hot the Mems is going to be, how hot the Maccabi Diva is going to be. You have horses there that can potentially improve. You've got the scenario of Via Sustina coming to Melbourne from Maccabi Diva, potentially not on a bottomless track this year. Like, the Maccabi Diva's on a good 4.
Well, yeah, weather's always dependent with a few of these horses. But
like, where does the Group 1 win come?
Underwood?
The Underwood looks a perfect race for him.
At 1,800?
The Might and Power...
Well, he hasn't won a Group 1 at 2,000.
He's probably a little bit suspect at 2,000. He didn't have everything go his way in the Might and Power last year on a bit of a biased track. But I don't really know whether... Are they going to see him for the Cox Plate, or they're more thinking...
No, he's getting set for the King Charles.
He's got champions. And the other thing I had back in my mind, he's got to come back from Hong Kong.
That's more...
He's coming off probably a career worst run that was halfway across the world.
And he's 8.
I think he's he is probably a champion in my book because of the bulk of work he's done. Like, you don't win as many Group 1s as he had and not be considered at least in that air.
Yeah, I was thinking the other day, if you looked at the, past the Maccabi Diva era of weight for age horses in that last 20 years, he probably sits somewhere in the top 15, pushing top 10.
Like, he's been a super horse. I just think this is a tough spring coming off, a bit of a foreign scenario for him. It's not like he's coming into the spring off going to Sydney. Like, he's coming back from Hong Kong. They're the right stable to get it right, but I think there's a bit of a task ahead of him, mainly because of the opposition he's going to face.
Well, I can fully understand the angle. I think
he's $4 in a Memsy.
What's in the Maccabi Diva? He's probably second.
He's second pick in the Maccabi Diva.
Yeah, and he's probably second pick in the King Charles.
The King Charles, probably doesn't look a bad race for him.
No, it's a great race for him, really.
No, he's probably backable in the King Charles at $11. Given it might not be... If the 4-year-olds sort of dodge and they're looking to go Golden Eagle or...
Well, I just look back at the autumn. I think the autumn's where you make your case on this. So Tom Kitten was pretty stiff not to beat him in a futurity. Then when they both had...
Well, Anotherwill beats him in an all.
Beats him in all, unlike in the All-Star Mile. All-Star Mile, Tom Kitten and him have good runs in the race. Tommy runs him down.
Tom Kitten sort of dive bombs him late. The visors might have backfired a little bit. They took him off.
Still, there's 3 runs there to suggest the new brigade are coming at him.
Yeah. Yeah. Poor Mr. B. I've put him in the sack. I'll have to go give him a carrot when he's out at Living Legends just to make up for it. He'll probably bite me.
Yeah, I was going to say.
He won't like me after this, but I think he's got a tough spring ahead.
Mr. B's got plenty of owners, so your phone's going to blow up with them saying that
I'm sure they'll understand.
You're an absolute pelican.
And they'll give it to me if he wins.
I'm assuming it won't be as nice as Pelican either. They'll be a bit harder on you than that. They do celebrate the wins, though. Overhyped runners going into the spring.
I think Mr. B would be the horse I'd love to own. Far out. What a ride he's taken him on.
Oh, mate, any horse who's won as many races.
Overhyped. Yeah, again, bit balls in the line. I'm going to go Beedman. What's Beedman done to deserve $6 favouritism in a Coolmore?
Yeah, I would have thought Woburn should be favourite for the Coolmore. I kind of think it's a weird year though. Nothing in that 1200 metre brigade in the early part of the year, say Blue Diamond, Golden Slipper, those lead ups. None of those horses really sold me that they're top level, except for maybe Tentress.
No, it might be a bit of a weaker year, but I just thought that
run at the Gold Coast.
That's just not real, isn't it? You go straight to the lead. You couldn't name a horse he beat. There's not been one horse out of the race that's done anything. It just feels a bit fugazi. It's on a wet track. Gold Coast numbers, ratings, they're irrelevant to me after Storm Boy. He proved that they are fugazi, the ratings coming out of that joint.
He had a fall from grace. I reckon if we did this podcast 12 months ago, he would have been on our radar as...
He might have been on the Overhyped list as well. But I just sort of thought, I'm thinking he's going to go around.
He'll be favourite, whatever he goes in first up.
But would he head to a Golden Rose? Probably.
Yeah, maybe.
So he's probably...
Or does he get held back a little bit?
They might hold him back because the top class 3-year-olds look pretty good. But if he's held back and he goes to a Roman Console or those sort of layoffs, he's going to be $1.80 in him. If you just mark him off to that Gold Coast win, and it just could be complete fugazi. So there's my angle with Beedman.
I think, and you're saying right now he's completely overhyped right now. You're not saying that he might not make. You're not saying he won't make the grade.
No,
he could come out.
He could come out and bolt in a Roman Console, but I think there's enough there to be a bit apprehensive about how good he actually is.
My overhyped is purely based on I just don't know where he wins a race, this preparation. Outside of the Sydney Weight for Age Group 2 races to start the prep, which I don't really care about. Races like the Chelmsford and the Hill Stakes, who cares? The pointy races...
The barrier trials.
Oh, they're good races. They're all right races. But in terms of I just don't see him being a real factor in the big races this spring, mainly because where he's going to be weighted. And he's right at the top of the markets in everything. Vauban. He's failed in 2 Melbourne Cups already at 55.5. There's a huge likelihood he's going to have to carry more in the Melbourne Cup this year with the way the weights has been raised at acceptance time. I've got a real feeling he doesn't quite stay 2 miles in Australia the way we run our races.
Well, his best win off the top of my head, last campaign was the Neville Solwood?
The Sky High.
Sky High.
2000.
And it was a slowly run race, wasn't it?
Or was it Never Solwood? It was one of the two, yeah.
Where he just ripped home in these huge closing splits. Off that, maybe there is a case you made. He's not a genuine 3,200 metre horse.
Oh, he was good in the Tancred, behind Dubai Honour, and then he went to the...
You were tipping him in the Queen Elizabeth off memory.
Yeah, I thought he was a good chance in the Queen Elizabeth. And
you're just a bit sour on him.
Well, no, I just think... he went to that Queen Elizabeth and he was probably a bit like Middle Earth. They just found the pace too overwhelming in front and they couldn't get into it. But that's a concern for me. That you don't have too many slowly run Caulfield Melbourne Cups. I think he is one of these horses that he's at his best in slowly run races where he can use his turn of foot. When they drag it out of him, I don't really think he's that good.
So you think he can win a lead up, suspect in the grand finals?
I just think he's completely overhyped. He's the current equal favourite for the Melbourne Cup.
Again.
He's right at the top of betting for the Caulfield Cup. He's not far off in the Turnbull.
Yeah, fair call.
I'd sort of have a lot of horses ahead of him in those races.
All right, I think that's a good start to the spring preview?
Spring previews. A 3-year-old? We haven't really touched on the 3-year-olds.
I've backed Federalists in the Spring Champion and the Derby.
Wow, okay. You just think he's going to be a horse that really appreciates
just
ground?
Looked 3-year-old to me. He's bred to be a champion by I'm Invincible out of Arcadia Queen, but I thought his run in the Champagne, just the race sort of got away from him a little bit, and you have to be nepotism to run him down from where he was. He's been tested against the top quality colts that look like they're going to stand up, Vinrock, nepotism. He's not all that far away, and he looks like a horse that might just keep getting better with time. So, a year where nepotism, Vinrock, Autumn Boy might sort of fit into that they might really chance their arm, thinking, how good are we? And potentially miss a race like the Spring Champion. The Spring Champion's been pretty weak Group 1 the last few years.
Yeah, it's always one of those races that takes shape very late.
I just think he might be a horse that can sort of peak at the right time.
Yeah, had a bit of a grounding as an early 2-year-old, similar to a horse like Tom Kitten, I guess, who came through similar races as an early 2-year-old and then won a Spring Champion.
I just like it's not a huge closing speed, but he's got good closing speed for a potential stayer. He's still able to come home in some of the quicker closing splits against some real top quality now 3-year-olds, and it was only his second and third start.
Yep.
So I'm intrigued. I'm very intrigued by Federalist.
Yeah, there's a horse that won at Geelong on Friday who I think is a very, very intriguing horse called Trapdoor.
Team Hawks.
From the Hawks stable. Gee, they got some 3-year-olds, don't they?
Team Hawks are back. They were in the wilderness for a few years.
Devil Knight, Nepotism, Federalist,
Trapdoor.
I don't know if they put him in that bracket, but I think he could be a pretty handy horse. I think he's one to definitely follow, especially in the early part of the spring. And look, the more I think about it, the more Nepotism has the Golden Rose and the Caulfield Guineas at his mercy. I think he's a better horse than Vinrock.
Wow.
And I'm number one supporter of Vinny. Been on him since day one, but
I don't know if I can cop that.
He's a bit of a beast, this Nepotism.
He still has genuine X factor.
Vinrock?
Nepotism.
Yeah. He went from a Todman to a Ballieu to a Champagne. He possibly could have won the Todman on his debut.
Yeah, his last 2 wins are a bit...
they were a bit freakish.
Bit bums on seats, isn't he? He is a horse that...
He's exciting.
Can sort of get you up and about.
Yeah. And there's and I've completely forgot his name. Oh, he won a jump out at Cranbourne the other day for Mark Walker.
Oh, I'm getting up. There was a lot of talk about this horse in a certain group chat we're in.
He's with the OTI team. He's by Seamus Award. He's kicking off at Sale.
Do we really need to be tipping him that strong off the jump outs?
Rosberg was the other horse that set the jump outs alight the other morning. Clint McDonald's horse. I think he's called Circulante, something like that.
Great podcasting. Keep paying.
Completely great podcasting here. But he's definitely one that I'd be looking at for the spring. Maybe a Guineas. As much as I've said the Guineas is nepotisms to lose, like there's a lot of horses that can probably come from left field for a call for Guineas. Have you found it yet?
Cinterado?
Cinterado, that's him. Yeah.
This was Trav's direct message. I think I found the call for Guineas at the Cranbourne jump outs.
Well,
Heat 4 yesterday, each jump out just better than the next one he's had.
he's a nice horse.
Absolute beast.
Should be going to sale.
Trav Noonan.
Should be going to sale.
5th of the 8th, 2025.
Oh, there you go. Well, I think this brigade of 3-year-olds are pretty exciting. The 3-year-old fillies, you got Scenic Point, Signature Sanu Lockhorns in the Quizette on Saturday.
Hopefully this is out by Saturday, but keen to see that race.
Bloody oath. And then you've got, some really exciting fillies in Sydney as well. Within the Law was huge in the Champagne.
Let's wrap it up.
All right. Nico said, time to go.
Show's done. Thanks, punters. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully you enjoyed the set. We put a lot of hard work into creating this little thing, and we're maybe dying according to the camera. So,
all right. Catch you later, punters. Enjoy the rest of the week. Patreon.com/The Racing Show where you can get more of our content. We'll see you there. How long was it?